Everyone, so let's start the new one. 1581 customer who visited but did not make any transaction. So we are given two table, visits and transaction. Visit has two column, visit ID and customer ID, both are integer. Visit ID is the column with unique values for this table. This table contains information about the customer who visited the mall. So 23 he visited with the ID 1, 30 he visited with ID 4, and 54 he visited with ID 5. Then he also visited again 7, and he again visited with ID 8. Next table is transactions. It has three columns: transaction ID, visit ID, and amount. Transaction ID is the column with unique values for this table. This table contains information about the transactions made during the visit ID. So if we look at this one, so suppose if customer ID with ID 23, he visited the mall with visit ID 1. So let's see. So on his visit, he made a transaction with ID as transaction ID 12 with the amount 910. Write a solution to find the IDs of user who visited without making any transactions and number of times they made this type of visits. So let me copy this table here, and then let me copy the next table. Okay, I think it will not support, so what we can do, we can paste it here. Let me put it like this. So this customer ID 23, he visited with 1 and he also made one transaction. So but we have to return the IDs of user who visited without making, so we don't have to include this one. So I'm just writing don't include. What about customer ID 9? He visited with ID 2 and he also made one transaction, so don't include. Let's look at 30. He visited with ID 4 but he did not make any transaction, so we have to include this one. What about 54? He visited with ID 5 and then he made some transaction, so we don't have to include this one. Let's look at customer ID 96. He visited with ID 6, visit ID 6, and it is not here, so we have to include this one. Then customer ID 54, remember he can visit again with different visit ID, and then this visit ID is not here, which means he did not made any transaction, so we have to include this one. And then he again visited with ID 8 and again did not made any transaction, so we have to include this one also. So in our final result we have to include ID 54, ID 96, and ID 30. Let's see. So yes, we have to include 54, 30, and 96. The next thing we have to return also is how many times did they make this type of visit. So we know that 30 only did this once, 96 also did this once, but 54 did it 2 times. So we have to return this one. So now let's query this one. So I have already created table and inserted a few rows. So what we have to do is, first we have to find the customers from visits. We have to find customer ID from visits, and then this visit ID should not be in the transaction table, so it is as simple as this one. Select visit ID from transaction. If this visit ID is not in the transaction table, then we have to return those customers. So if I run this one, or to understand this much better, let's run it in the lead code. So we are expecting 54, 54, 30, and 96. So we are getting 54, 54, 30, and 96. Now what we have to do, we just have to return how many times did they made this type of visits. So we can count visit ID as, and then if we are using count, then we have to use group by. We are just grouping the customers. Let's run it. So okay, we are getting expected result 30. He did it once, 96 once and 54 two times. Submit. It got submitted. So let me copy this one and paste it here. So now let's look at this table. 101, he visited with ID 1. Then let's look at him again. He visited with ID 5. 5 is not present here. Then okay, so he made 2 visits, in one of which he did not make any transaction, so 101 is here. We can also solve this using joins. So now we want to get the information of all the customers, right? So we can use left join. Select from visits, left join on transactions, where we know that at visit we can join these two tables using visit ID, where we have to give alias v transaction t, where v dot visit ID equals to t dot visit ID, and let's see what result we are getting. So if I copy this one and take it to the lead code, so this is just to make sure that we are understanding everything. Okay, we have to use on. So now let's look at this one. So visit customer with ID 1. So the first 2 columns are from visit and the next 3 columns are from transaction, and wherever there will not be any visit, it will show us null. So he visited and made transaction. This one, look at this one, he also visited and made transaction. I'll also scroll down to the left side. Customer ID 9, he visited with 2, so this one we can see it here. What about 30? So he visited with visit ID 4, but he did not make any transaction, so here we are seeing it as null and null and null. So similarly we have to find all the records where customer visited but that visit ID is not present in the transaction table. So what I can write, where t dot visit ID is null, and then what we have to find, we have to return the customer ID, which will be coming from visit table, and then we also have to return the count. So for getting the count, we can use group by. This will be as customer ID, and then we have to return count. So we can count transaction ID or anything. So how many transaction did they did without making any actual purchase as count of transaction. So what I am expecting for 30, I'll get 1. For 54, because there are 2 records, I'll get 2. Oh, I think I have to use the visit ID. We dot visit ID, because if we use the transaction ID, it will return null. And this also got accepted. Thank you.